Well, folks, Donald Trump needs to make massive changes to his economic policies, like immediately. Like he needs to abandon a lot of the economic policy that he has been promoting the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. Because we know during Donald Trump's first administration, his economic polling numbers were the bright spot. Regardless of what was going on in the administration, the economic polling numbers were the best. Americans believe by and far that they would be in a better economic situation if Donald Trump was president, regardless of how they felt about him personally, about how they felt about his other policies, about on a moral level. That didn't matter to them. They thought that Donald Trump would put them in a better financial position than anybody else. And it is safe to say, and it's not just safe to say, we know it has not played out the same way during his second administration. After he announced massive Liberation Day tariffs, which I really don't know who it was liberating. Was it liberating China or was it liberating the United States? He announced these massive Liberation Day tariffs, which caused a lot of blowback from both sides of the aisle. We know massive tariffs on roughly 70 different countries. We saw tariffs on places like Vietnam, China be rolled up, places like Israel. It was not a good day in the markets. Let's just put it that way. Of course, we know the market reacted very badly. The Dow, the S&P 500 tumbled roughly 10, 11% in the following days. But the issue was at the same time, we saw that the price of a bond did not go up. It was not going the way that we would have expected it to go. Which, what does that mean? If Americans and institutions, entities are pulling out of stocks, but the price of a bond, the demand for a bond isn't going up, what does that mean? That means they're pulling their money out of the American economy altogether. They're sitting on cash. They are not pulling it out of the stock market to put into what they would consider what would be a more safer investment, like a bond. No, they were pulling their money out of the market, period. We slapped huge tariffs, 46% on Cambodia, or 49% on Cambodia, 46% on Vietnam, 37% on Bangladesh, 36% on Thailand, 32% on Taiwan, 31% on Switzerland, South Korea, 25%, Israel, 17%, the United Kingdom, 10%, Ukraine, 10%. We saw that these massive tariffs were not good for the average American consumer. It was not. And we can see now that Americans, they want tariffs, but they don't want it the way that Trump wants it. By and far, Donald Trump is underwater hugely on the economy. This is an Atlas Intel poll. They were the most accurate pollster in 2024. Trump underwater 14 points when it comes to the economy. 14 points when it comes to the economy. You look at this. This is from YouGov. Is the economy getting worse or better? Before the election, October 19th, 2024, before the election, 50% of Americans thought the economy was getting worse. Trump's elected, it drops down as low as, I think, 34% here. November 16th, 34% of Americans thought that the economy was getting worse. Well, we saw some of the highest numbers. 35% of Americans thought it would be the same, and 22% thought it was getting better. We haven't seen numbers like that in a while. The amount of people who thought it was getting worse went down hugely. And then Donald Trump decided to announce these Liberation Day tariffs, roll these things out, and it shot right back up to where we were during most of the Biden administration. Remember, this is where things were. This is COVID. This was Trump's administration here. Things were getting worse, only a quarter of Americans. Then it shoots up to like 59%, 60%. Trump gets it all the way down and getting worse, and then they thought it was getting better, then getting worse, then it just keeps getting better. And now we're back up here again. We're back at 54% of Americans believe that the economy is getting worse. They think things are not getting better for them. You even saw here out of a Reuters or a Pew Research poll, 55% of U.S. adults say they are not confident Trump can make good decisions when it comes to the economy. Only 37% of Americans approve of Trump's handling of the economy. 37%. Look at Fox News. Fox News has it at 38%. 38% out of a Fox News poll that is supposed to be good for Trump. But the top line data that says they don't approve of Trump's handling of the economy, that is a fact. But it doesn't mean they disagree with what Trump is doing overall. Americans by and far still agree with what he's doing. But look at this. Underwater on taxes, job growth, the economy, national debt, China competition. Wow, he's underwater on all of this here. Even on immigration, he's underwater. which I don't think he really is underwater on this, but when it comes to, like, you're underwater 15 percentage points. That's no margin of error there. You're not into the positive territory with the margin of error. Because Americans still want what Donald Trump wants at the end of the day. And the polling 100% suggests that. Take a look here. A poll right here. Raising tariffs against specific countries as a negotiating tactic. It is 11 points above. 11 points above water. 53% of Americans agree with that. Agree with that. Look at this. 17 points. He's above water. 17 points when it comes to mass deportation of illegal immigrants. Look at this. Raising tariffs across the board to protect U.S. manufacturing. 4 percentage points above. You're looking at 49% of Americans think that raising tariffs across the board will protect U.S. manufacturing. Because at the end of the day, what is playing into Trump's job approval dropping is the fact that the U.S. economy and inflation are the top two issues for Americans by and far. 51, you could even say up to 58% of Americans are against the tariffs announced by Trump. 50% believe the tariffs should be temporary if they're going to stay on. 36% say they should be permanent. That is the Peter Navarro, Howard Lutnick wing of the Republican Party, who is just bat shit crazy. Bat shit crazy. Americans by and far believe that it will not reduce inflation, that inflation will increase because of this, which is true. That is true. But 41% of Americans believe that American manufacturing will impact them and it will strengthen American manufacturing. So this is where you really have to be nuanced here. People agree, Americans agree with what Trump is doing. They don't agree with the tactics that he used. They agree with overall what he's doing. They do not agree with the tactics he is using. They believe things could have been done differently. He could have rolled these tariffs out differently. Remember, this election map here, he was elected in 2024 to reduce inflation, to get the economy under control, to make the economy work for the people who it is not working for right now, to make it work for the working class, not for the elites. That is why Donald Trump was elected in 2024. Now, we can sit here and poo-poo on all of this and how, he rolled tariffs out the wrong. He didn't do this right. He didn't do that right. You can sit and nitpick all of this. And that's fine. It should be called out. This is called being responsible, is what this is called. When you call something out. Because at the end of the day, I don't want Democrats to win. I am calling this out simply because I want Republicans to win. I don't want Democrats to take control of the White House in 2028. And that is why I say this. Because this map right here does not happen unless Donald Trump and the Republicans have a positive approval rating when it comes to the economy. If Americans do not trust him on the economy, he is losing a huge faction of his support. A huge faction of his support. And you already see he's walking back a lot of these tariffs because they know it was wrong. He's walking back large swaths of these tariffs that he announced. Large portions of these tariffs. He put a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs. He kept it 10% in. You saw multiple times that we paused tariffs with Canada and Mexico. We saw tariffs are now in effect with Canada and Mexico. Those did not get paused, though, on the most recent pause. But you saw us doubling down on China. We were doubling down on the tariffs that we had on China. Because most Americans, at the end of the day, let's see if I can find this here. Most Americans want us. And here's the big thing. 56% did not agree with the formula that he used. 51% of Americans agree or are in favor of placing tariffs on China. They obviously agree with Trump when it comes to China. We need to decouple from China. We need to reshore manufacturing for national security industries. That is all true. We cannot be reliant on China for these national security products that are vital for the economy. That would bring our economy to a standstill if China cut us off. That is all true at the same time. That can all be true at the same time. They don't like the way he rolled it out, but they agree with the overall idea of what Trump is doing. And so that brings us to what he can do to change this. There are 3 things that I've outlined multiple times of what Donald Trump can do to fix this. Number 1, it comes to cutting trade deals. We already have news out of the White House. Just take a listen here and then we'll talk about it.
Spoke to our entire trade team this morning. There is a lot of progress being made. We now have 18 proposals on paper that have been brought to the trade team. Again, these are proposals on paper that countries have proposed to the Trump administration and to our government. You have Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, Ambassador Greer, NEC Director Hassett, and Peter Navarro, the entire trade team, meeting with 34 countries this week alone. We are moving at Trump speed to ensure these deals are made on behalf of the American worker and the American people. And just yesterday, it seemed to get a little bit lost in the news, and I think it's a disservice to the American public that it did. The Vice President announced terms of reference for a trade deal with India. That is a big deal. We know when we look at the numbers, the monetary trade barriers and the non-monetary trade barriers from India, they have been ripping off the United States and American workers for a very long time. So the fact that the Vice President with Prime Minister Modi on that trip in India announced.
This is exactly what we need to be seeing. We need to see these trade deals, because if they're truly reciprocal tariffs, we need trade deals that bring tariffs down on our products. They bring down the tariffs that we have on their products, and it brings down their non-tariff barriers that are preventing American products from reaching their market. So it's a double plus. It's a double positive, because at the same time you're able to have no tariffs on our products, but also we're then able to get into certain markets that we maybe weren't competitive in before because of regulations or because of tariffs. We are now opening ourselves up. We're opening our products up to new markets. Manufacturers will have more places to send their products. That is a positive. That is very positive. And actually, while we were recording this, we got some big news out of the Trump administration. I just got it on my phone right now, and I'm going to see if I can find it on here from the New York Times. Let's see. You know, I don't like the New York Times, but they did give me a good deal, $1 a month for this. Gosh, okay. Okay, let's see if I can figure out who was the one who wrote this. Let's see. This was wrote today. Let's see, Max. But basically, in this deal, it was an executive order, or this new breaking news that just came out. This was an executive order. Oh my gosh. This is here. I was able to find it right here. President Trump has ordered that the U.S. government take a major step towards mining vast tracts of the ocean floor, a move that nearly every other nation in the world considers off limits to this kind of industrial activity. Now, we're not going to go through all the New York Times BS, ripping on Trump, but the order establishes the U.S. as a global leader in seabed mineral exploration and development, both within and beyond national jurisdiction, according to text released by the White House. Parts of the ocean floor are blanketed with potato-sized nodules containing valuable minerals like nickel, cobalt, magnesium that are essential to advanced technologies that the U.S. considers critical to its economic and military scrutiny, but whose supply chains are increasingly controlled by China. You want to talk about, what Donald Trump can do? This is exactly what he needs to be doing right here. And we need to deregulate. That's number 3. We'll skip to number 3 real quick because we're talking about deregulation. But no commercial scale seabed mining has ever taken place. The technological hurdles are high, and there have been serious concerns about environmental concerns. Let's see. Many nations are eager to see seabed mining become a reality, but until now, the prevailing consensus has been that economic imperatives shouldn't take precedent over the risk that mining could damage the fishing industry and oceanic floor food chains, or could affect ocean's essential role in absorbing planet-warming carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Trump's order instructs National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to accelerate the issuance of permits to mine in both international and U.S. territorial waters. The order comes after years of delays as the ISA in setting up a regulatory framework for seabed mining. The authority still has not agreed to a set of rules. The executive order could pave way for the Metals Company, a prominent seabed mining company, to receive an expedited permit from NOAA to actively mine for the first time. This could be huge. This would be huge. Deregulation. I talk about this a lot. We need to deregulate our economy. This is what my I'm actually having to go off script here and kind of what I initially was going to talk about. I'm going to have to add this in here, but I talk about it a lot. We talk that we are reliant on China for a lot of critical minerals. China could cut us off and we would be stopped in our tracks immediately. So not only do we need to decouple from China, but in order to decouple from China, we need to deregulate our economy. Why is it that a rare earth mineral processing plant in China takes 3 to 6 months, but in America, it takes 3 decades to become fully operational because of regulations, permanent environmental BS? Maybe it shouldn't be permanent that way, but I think we should have some sort of kind of off-limits period where we have fast-track permit issuing so we can get our hands on as many rare earth minerals. You want to talk about getting our hands on rare earth minerals? That is why it is imperative for the United States for national security to take control of Greenland. Even if it is just an economic partnership, we need to be able to mine the rare earth minerals there. We need to be able to set up more strategic bases in Greenland. Because Greenland wants to become independent from Denmark. Okay, you have no military. You have no way to defend yourself. Do you just expect that the U.S. is going to defend you because we have a naval base there? Absolutely not. You will pay for your own defense or you will become part of the United States. Absolutely, we need that. We need Greenland for national security. We don't need Canada. We need Greenland for national security. Maybe Canada's down the road. But we need Greenland for national security purposes. But on top of that, we need to deregulate our economy. We need to deregulate so we can decouple from China. And then that comes to number 3, is tax cuts. We know Congress is working on a reconciliation bill right now to reduce taxes. We need to not only renew the Trump tax cuts from 2017, but we need to cut them even further. Corporate taxes for U.S. manufacturers needs to come down to 15%. We need to reduce taxes on Social Security. We need to reduce taxes on tips and overtime. You want to talk about having a better outlook, the Americans having a better outlook on Trump's handling of the economy? Cut their frickin' taxes. Cut their taxes and cut spending. Cut spending immediately. We need to be cutting spending like there's no tomorrow. We have a $2 trillion yearly deficit. We need to cut spending immediately. But with those tax cuts, coupled with deregulation and good trade deals, that is economic prosperity right there. That is how we get economic prosperity in the United States of America. Free trade with other countries, having some of the best competition in America, and deregulating so we can compete with other economies. That is what we need to do. That is how Trump can fix the economy. That's how he can fix his Poland. That is how Republicans can win in 2026 in the midterms. That is how Republicans can win in the 2028 presidential election. That is how Republicans win. We unleash American prosperity on the world. We unleash the economic engine that is governed, that has a governor on it, that was placed by Democrats. And some Republicans too. There are some Republicans who like that want to put a cap on prosperity in America. No, unleash American prosperity. Drill, baby, drill. Unleash American independence. We cannot be reliant on China. We need to once again become the superpower of the world when it comes to advanced technological systems like that. Now, we're still up there, and we probably are still number 1. I think you can make a strong case. But when so much of the components that go into our pharmaceutical products are controlled by China. So much of what goes into our smartphones are controlled by China. China controls like 70 or 80% of total output of smartphones, tablets, watches, and computers, which is just ridiculous. We need to get a hold on this. When it comes to the auto industry, we need to reshore manufacturing for national security purposes. But what Trump is doing in this executive order here is exactly what we need to see. This is exactly what we see going into 2028, into 2026, so we can win. So that's going to wrap things up for today, folks. Let me know your thoughts down below, and we will catch you next time, folks.